Okay guys, so today I wanted to make a God Roll wishlist for Destiny 2's Season of the Chosen legendary weapons. This will be every legendary weapon that we currently know of. Not all of these are currently obtainable as of the making of this video, so please keep that in mind. But I will try to do my best to kind of go over my thoughts for each of these weapons. You know, PvE, PvP kinds of roles, how I feel like they might perform, what you might want to look for, and just kind of what I would prefer personally on these weapons. So you might not agree with all of my picks, but this is just what I think. So with that being said, let's start with some of the Battlegrounds weapons. These are the weapons from the new Battlegrounds activity, starting with this Imperial Needle Bow. So right here, nothing stands out too much other than the new perk Frenzy. I feel like Frenzy is worth a try in PvP or PvE. Just a great perk overall. I've had a fantastic experience with Frenzy on my weapons. And then this is interesting too, Impulse Amplifier. So on a bow, this will make your arrows go zooming. We're talking super fast. I feel like this might be a good perk for PvP specifically, because when your shot is lined up, you know, at a longer range, if somebody's strafing, you know, your shot might whiff. So this might help you land more of your shots in PvP. So there's that to keep in mind. But if you're pairing something with Frenzy, you can never really go wrong with Archer's Tempo. Fantastic choice. I'm not too well versed in bows, so I can't say much as far as strings and arrows, but accuracy is always a good thing for PvP. Stability, I guess, can be nice. I'm not enough of a bow enthusiast to, again, really know how the stability on your bow is going to feel, but I personally would just go, you know, for accuracy. And then as far as bowstrings, I got no clue, man. I could not tell you. But again, I'd probably lean more into accuracy. And I've tried not to knock that reload speed down too much, because that's going to affect, you know, how fast you're getting, you know, subsequent arrows and all that. So overall, I'd say Archer's Tempo, Frenzy would probably be my first choice. For PvP, you maybe try Impulse Amplifier and Opening Shot to help you really secure those opening shots of your kind of combat engagements in PvP. As far as mods, not really sure what to go with here. I guess PvP maybe a targeting adjuster, since you won't be off the ground a whole lot with a bow. I don't think you're going to get a whole lot of use out of Icarus Grip. If you find yourself hip firing your bows though, you might try a freehand grip. That'll improve your hip fire accuracy substantially. It's actually quite noticeable on a bow. I like to hip fire my bows sometimes. But yeah, as far as the bow goes, that's pretty much all I really have to say. This next weapon I wanted to take a look at was the Extraordinary Rendition SMG from Battlegrounds. This thing is fantastic. I've been using it a whole bunch in PvE specifically. I've had it on a couple matches in PvP. I feel like it performs alright, but I mostly am looking at it for PvE. So in that first perk column, Overflow, fantastic perk. You want your magazine to be huge, then just pick up that special brick and watch your magazine go up to like 50 plus rounds in a mag, which is insanely useful, especially when SMGs are the barrier weapon of the season. I know they're not right now, but in a future season, having something like Overflow on a barrier SMG has been proven to be super reliable, super useful, just really, really good. Cannot recommend Overflow enough. In the second perk column, I'd say Rampage is always a solid choice, paired with Overflow. Multi-kill clip is a good perk, but it doesn't pair with Overflow well, because when your magazine is that big, you're not reloading as much, because of overflow, so you kind of have a hard time taking advantage of the multi-kill clip bonus. Again, Frenzy, fantastic perk. I've been using that a lot myself. Overflow and Frenzy is probably what I would suggest. Subsistence, I can't really recommend personally, because Subsistence on SMGs just really hurts that reserve size, man. Like, if you already run out of primary ammo a lot when you're using an SMG, then Subsistence is only going to make your time worse. I wouldn't even bother with it. The benefit is so minimal. Surplus can be good if you are like me and you tend to hang on to your neutral abilities and just focus on gunplay in PvE gunfights. This is a decent ability. Also for PvP, mainly because of the stability. When you have fully charged surplus in PvP, your stability on this thing really goes up. It turns it into a laser, which is super useful considering that these SMGs in PvP, this aggressive frame 750 archetype has a super low optimal time to kill, which is fantastic. So getting that stability for PvP, super useful. But overall, Overflow Frenzy, best friend. Overflow Rampage, your best friend. I like Tactical Mag in case I do need to reload. Boost your magazine size a little bit, boost that reload a little bit. And then as far as barrels, would not really recommend full bore. It's going to kill your stability, which is bad. Fluted is fantastic. Extended is okay. Corkscrew is fine. I don't really think that you need to worry about recoil direction, so chambered compensator and arrowhead brake are not completely necessary, but if they are your preference, then go for it. Straight up boost to range and hammer forged is nice. Straight up boost to stability with polygonal is nice. For PvP, you probably can't go wrong with barrels, but I really would not recommend full bore. And I guess that's about all I can think of. I guess I would personally pick maybe a reload speed masterwork for PvE, just because I am a chronic reloader. I love reloading. I love having that full magazine. I am just constantly mashing that reload button, man. I need the full magazine. I guess moving on from there, we have the Far Future Sniper. So this is a 90 RPM sniper. So just kind of a plain sniper. Not too fast firing, not too slow firing. Standout perk here again is maybe Frenzy. So if you're surrounded by ads or something and you can get Frenzy to proc, this sniper will start dealing a lot more damage, which is fantastic. Other than Frenzy in the second perk column, man, I don't know what to say really. Maybe Demolitionist or Wellspring if you are focusing on ability builds. You could even use Thresh paired with the new exotic Warlock chest piece, the Mantle of Battle Harmony, if you're on a solar subclass. But this is a very specific usage for Thresh. I would honestly just recommend Frenzy for general PvE purposes. As far as this first perk column goes, if you want like a decent damage sniper, autoloading is fantastic. It means you can just empty this magazine, switch to your heavy weapon. Works especially well, if your heavy weapon has autoloading in particular. Lead from Gold. Lead from Gold is okay. It's not my first perk choice. It is very good if you can get heavy ammo to drop. If you're not getting heavy ammo drops, it's not really going to help you. And this perk, I don't know. It gets even worse if you're in like a Grandmaster and you're lacking heavy ammo. But if you can get the heavy ammo to drop, fantastic perk. For PvP on this sniper, it is hard to say. Maybe slide shot if you like sliding. I personally would not be sliding around with the sniper that much, so I would opt for moving target, opening shot. But I will say that not having snapshot on this thing really sucks. You could even go quick draw. opening shot on the sniper for PvP, or if you really need that ADS time, surplus opening shot. But yeah, I don't think this sniper is super optimized for PvP. I think it's more of just kind of a general PvE-ish sniper with that frenzy perk. Don't really have a whole lot else to say. I'm not a huge fan of these perks or this sniper, but we'll see how it ends up playing. I might change my mind later. Next weapon is this new linear fusion rifle. You can get one from the season pass, but it also, I think, drops from the battlegrounds activity and the focusing options. So this is actually very interesting. So we have both frenzy and vorpal weapon in this second perk column. So if you want a specific boss damage linear fusion rifle, which is what I would personally want this for, there's quite a few options. You could go vorpal auto-loading, so if you wanted to switch between this and something like a sniper, you could do that. You could do auto-loading, maybe frenzy if there are a lot of enemies nearby, to kind of help you keep that damage boost procced. The nice thing about frenzy is that you can get frenzy's damage bonus to work on any enemies as long as you're in combat, so that that extra boost to your damage applies to anything, not just the boss. Not to mention increase to reload, which is not bad at all either. And for that reason, you could pair rapid hit with frenzy as well. So if you're chaining a lot of precision hits, you'll basically reload your magazine instantly. Like, it's absurd. You could also go rapid hit vorpal for boss DPS specifically as well. Clown cartridge vorpal. The only problem with clown cartridge is that your reload speed tanks, but you are getting more shots in your magazine. So it's really comes down to what kind of boss damage you want. If you want straight up like burst damage, you might want to keep this thing like, you might want to reload this thing for a damage phase if you're using clown cartridge to kind of get the most out of your magazine, because you can't, keep reloading it mid phase if you've got like a really short damage phase on a boss. Clown cartridge won't help you there. For sustained damage, this is fine, or rapid hit is fine. Another interesting thing you could do is maybe clown cartridge demolitionist. So the nice thing about demolitionist is not only do you get grenade back on kills, but like it says, activating your grenade reloads this weapon from reserves. So essentially you throw your grenade, reload this whole thing, and then you have clown cartridge. So now you're getting like 6 to 8 shots in this linear fusion rifle's magazine just from throwing a grenade, which can also work out fantastic, but you lose out on that bonus damage that you would have been getting from vorpal weapon or frenzy. As far as batteries, for PvE, cannot really go wrong with liquid coils. It's just straight up boost to damage. It does increase that charge time a little bit, but damage is always good. Definitely wouldn't really recommend this, as there are perks like rapid hit, clown cartridge, auto loading to kind of get around the magazine constraints that this is trying to solve. This is actually fine because it won't hurt your reload speed at all. But liquid coils is very good. Definitely do not recommend accelerated coils at all. It's just a straight up decrease to your damage. That's about all I can really say. Don't do accelerated coils, don't do ionized. Enhanced battery is fine, liquid coil is fine. Any other stuff is probably fine, but it's not giving you a direct PvE bonus, at least not for boss damage. Barrels, it is up to preference. If you want stability, do that. If you want range, do that. If you want handling, go for that. This has a pretty good recoil direction, nice and vertical, because it is a linear fusion rifle, so You don't really need arrowhead break on it. I would say probably a reload speed masterwork or a handling masterwork if you're planning on pairing this with a weapon for boss damage. Don't really recommend charge time because that will also decrease the amount of damage this thing does per shot. But you know, depending on the situation, you may find the charge time masterwork difference negligible. But yeah, I'd say reload speed and probably handling for PvE. Stability, probably not necessary for the most part. I guess let's talk PvP for a second. Maybe Dragonfly, if you could get it to work. You could use Vorpal Weapon to maybe shut down supers. And, I mean, that's about it. Either Dragonfly or Vorpal Weapon for PvP in this second slot. Or Frenzy, I guess. Granted, you have to be in combat to get that damage bonus, but this might be okay for PvP as well. And in that first perk column, I would say either Rangefinder for that boost to range, or Killing Wind for an additional boost to range and mobility if you get a kill. Same deal here, although Projection Fuse in PvP is pretty good if you are trying to map people. And then here, can't really go wrong with Small Bore or Hammer Forged. I don't really think you need stability in PvP too much, unless you are good enough to really capitalize that and chain off multi-kills with this thing. That's about all I can really say for PvP. I'd recommend this more for PvE. A lot of fantastic options: auto-loading rapid hit clown cartridge, Vorpal and Frenzy, and maybe even Demolitionist, depending on what you've got going build-wise, will help you. Fantastic weapon, although linear fusions are definitely a victim of this sandbox. They are not great for damage, but if you like using it, it is what it is. That's all I have to say. However, this next weapon is fantastic for damage. I've been using it. It is fantastic. Biggest perk to look for: lasting impression. Lasting impression. This thing is a monster. It will not do a ton of impact damage, but as soon as it explodes, the amount of damage, the numbers that you'll get, will blow your mind. It is insane the kind of damage this perk will do. So, for that reason, I would primarily recommend this for boss damage. So, what I have in mind is something along the lines of impact casing, lasting impression, then one of maybe a few perks depending on the situation. So, impulse amplifier will increase your reload speed and the velocity. So if you're having trouble hitting a target, this might help you because your rocket will shoot to it faster and hopefully it won't dodge out of the way by the time it gets there. And increasing the reload speed in general is just fantastic if you're in a boss damage phase. This thing only has one in its magazine, so you're going to be reloading a lot most of the time. What I have in mind is field prep though, because this will boost your reload speed if you crouch, so just stay crouched, and then it will also increase your reserves, so you'll have like more rockets that you're able to shoot at a boss with field prep, which is fantastic because generally that's kind of the first issue you run into with rockets for your damage heavy, is you're shooting rockets and then suddenly you're out of rockets. You've done a lot of damage, but you don't have any heavy left, and you might not be having a whole lot of luck with getting heavy to drop. This will kind of help not mitigate that, not eliminate that, but certainly it will give you a starting edge. If you wanted to pair this rocket with some other things for damage, definitely auto-loading holster is fantastic. And you could even use surplus to reload. But it means that you shouldn't be using your abilities during that damage phase, and depending on what you're doing, you may or may not be wanting or needing to throw your grenade or your melee or something. and as a result, this might not be as consistent or helpful. So for that reason, I would say field prep or impulse amplifier for just the straight boosts to reload speed. And then auto loading if you want to pair this with something else for boss damage. Clusters have been nerfed in the past. They do not do as much damage as a result. This is a better perk for kind of ad clearing, but honestly, even for ad clear, I would recommend Lasting Impression, because just the huge blast radius on this thing will just mow down huge waves of ads. As a result, it's truly incredible. But you can also use Chain Reaction. Fantastic perk for just killing waves of ads. If you can get an explosion off, it chains to them, they all explode in this huge wave. And you can also combine that with a Dragonfly spec to increase the damage and the radius of that chain reaction. I know it says Dragonfly, but it works with Chain Reaction. If you don't believe me, go try it. It's an incredible thing. Frenzy is also worth a mention here. It is a good perk for general use, I would say. I would prefer Lasting Impression, because Lasting Impression, I believe at least, out damages Frenzy, but certainly Frenzy is not a bad place to start. Ambitious Assassin is also fine, but the damage that you're going to get off of just Lasting Impression makes having multiple rockets in your magazine not really worth it. And again, as far as magazine perks go, impact casing all the way for damage. It's just a straight up boost to impact damage. You want this on your rocket launcher if you want to be damaging things with it. I would probably consider this a primarily PvE rocket launcher, at least that's what I'm looking for. You could use it in PvP with either Surplus or Quick Draw, or even Impulse Amplifier, and then pair that with maybe Cluster Bomb, but probably Frenzy or even Lasting Impression. It really depends on how you use rocket launchers in PvP. I personally don't really use those as my heavy, so I don't have a lot I can say about it. As far as barrels go on this thing, I like velocity, so anything that gives me a boost to velocity, I'm a fan of. That's pretty much all I have to say. I guess Reload Masterwork if you're using it for boss damage. But yeah, moving on. Last, I think, Battlegrounds weapon, the Brass Attacks Sidearm. This is interesting. It's an energy slot, void 2-burst sidearm. I'm not sure why it says magazine 25, because it shoots in 2 bursts. That's just a fact. Hard-hitting 2-burst fire. But ignoring that, this thing will probably be very good if you were a fan of Season of Dawn's Breachlight sidearm in the kinetic slot. You will probably like this. I can't say for sure, not having used either this or Breachlight pretty much at all. But roll-wise, PvE, I'm looking at Rapid Hit and Rampage. Either that or Rapid Hit Frenzy. You could even get Feeding Frenzy and Frenzy to double up on the Frenzy perks. But the thing about Rapid Hit is you don't need kills to boost your reload. You just need to land headshots. And not only that, but it will boost your already decent stability to make getting those headshots even more consistent, which is good. Dragonfly is an okay perk, but I would prefer something like Frenzy or Rampage. One for All is fine. The issue with One for All is you have to shoot 3 separate things with the sidearm, and by then you've already chewed through a decent bit of your magazine, maybe not a ton of magazine, depending on what you've got going on, but it just would not be my first choice for that reason. You have to hit multiple targets, and then you gotta reload once you start getting that perk to really start working for you. I would just prefer something simple and clean like Frenzy or Rampage. Wellspring, if you are rocking an ability-based build, you want your abilities to come back. Threat Detector, I guess, is a okay perk if you can't get your hands on Rabbit Hit or Surplus or Frenzy. Magazine wise, Appended Mag is a great way to go just to straight up boost your magazine, which works out really fantastic for this sidearm. Flared Magwell or even Light Mag if you like reloading. For PvP, I honestly could recommend about the same thing, maybe Rabbit Hit Frenzy, Rabbit Hit Rampage, but I'm not a huge sidearm user in PvP, so that's not my thing, but I can definitely say ricochet rounds all the way, and then either hammer forged, small bore, or maybe corkscrew for PvP. I see that recoil going a little bit to the left, probably not too noticeable, but if it's something that really aggravates you, definitely chambered compensator is fine to kind of help fix that, or even like a counterbalance mod, in which case you could roll with something like extended barrel. You don't really need the handling. If that bugs you, you can use corkscrew, or again something like small bore. Just even perks all around. And yeah, so I think that wraps up the Battlegrounds weapons just about. I guess next let's talk about some of these playlist weapons. So for Strikes, Crucible, and Gambit, there are two kind of playlist specific legendary weapons that drop in each of them. And first we'll start off with the two strike weapons. So we have the Royal Entry Rocket Launcher. So a lot of perks to look at here. Obviously standouts for me, for PvE, for something like boss damage. Again, like Lasting Impression, and Impulse Amplifier, or Field Prep, or Auto Loading, depending on your situation. All great perks. Impact Casing all the way. So similar to what we saw with the code Duello rocket from the Battlegrounds, the issue with this is going to come down to drop rate and the amount of perks in these columns. Like, there are a lot of perks, and some of them, like Genesis or Underdog, you're not going to be using a whole lot. Cluster Bombs, not super effective. There's just a lot more to work with here. It's going to be harder to get a roll on this that you're looking for than the code Duello. So for that reason, I would recommend the other rocket over this. But if you want specifically, avoid rocket to kind of do the same thing as code Duello, this is what you got. But God bless you, RNG is going to be rough. It's going to be rough to get the roll you want on this. I guess PvP wise, nothing really stands out to me. Yeah, this is going to be just a void code Duello that is harder to get the roll you want on. That's all I got for you. That's all I got. Other strike weapon though, the third Axiom Pulse Rifle. So it's an arc pulse rifle. It's a adaptive 390 RPM pulse rifle. So similar to the Geon 7 pulse rifle from the Season of the Worthy last year. It's been dropping ever since, but is getting sunset after the season. So this will kind of be your replacement Geon 7 pulse rifle. And this is going to be a trend with all these playlist weapons. I cannot express to you how many perks are in these columns. Like, just a lot to work with. So I guess we'll start with PvP, since that's a bit easier to specify. So PvP, maybe Surplus to kind of help with the stability if you're not using your abilities a whole lot. Killing Wind, fantastic in PvP. You might find Moving Target good, maybe Zen Moment. Both of those especially really good for controller players. But probably the overall best perk that I would pick for PvP in this first column is Rangefinder. Just a flat out bump to range, which is what you want on a pulse rifle. You want to be mapping people, always very good. In the second column, multi-kill clip in PvP, if you can get it rolling, fantastic perk to shred through people. Rampage as well, since you don't have to reload. You could even go elemental capacitor and use a void subclass to increase the stability, which will essentially turn it into a laser. Super good if you want your pulse rifle to be consistent. But yeah, 390s, at least for me in PvP, nothing too special, but certainly not awful. Ricochet rounds, of course, and depending on what you want, I would say maybe small bore for just a flat out bump to range and stability. You could go extended to help solve that recoil, but honestly, if you throw on like a counterbalance mod, that'll help anyway. So probably corkscrew, maybe even chambered compensator if you really want that like good vertical recoil. Yeah. PvE, oh boy, we have Feeding Frenzy and multi-kill clip. We've got Feeding Frenzy and Rampage. You could even use Genesis and maybe Rampage if there are a lot of shields, but Genesis really isn't my first choice of a perk for PvE. Just a little too situational. Maybe useful in like a Nightfall, but that's about it. I'd just go with Feeding Frenzy, honestly. Probably your best bet. Unrelenting is a fine perk when you can get it rolling, but in a lot of group content and just a lot of content in general, you're not going to find yourself too threatened. So, there's not really a whole lot of demand for Unrelenting, a perk that will restore your health. Thresh, not too great, but if you pair that with the Mantle of Battle Harmony, again, Warlock chest piece, exotic, you rock an arc subclass, since this is an arc weapon, you might find some use for this, but otherwise, wouldn't really recommend Thresh. Dragonfly is okay, but not fantastic. Disruption Break is definitely worth a shout out. You break, let's say, a shield, and then you switch to like your kinetic sniper. That kinetic sniper is going to absolutely wreck whoever's shield you just broke. And it works on barrier champions as well. So if or when pulse rifles become a barrier weapon in a future season, again, this is very good for that reason. Same thing with Vorpal. This becomes a champion weapon. This will do increased damage to champions, increased damage to bosses. Rampage is good. It's about all I can really say for PvE about this pulse rifle. Nothing more really to add there. Moving on, we have the Crucible weapons, starting with the Keening sidearm. This is a 300 RPM sidearm, which I believe can kill in 4 headshots and has a decent time to kill in the current meta. I can't remember exactly what it is, but it's pretty solid. Issue here is going to be finding the role you want. I guess PvP wise, hard to say. Maybe Killing Wind. Killing Wind and maybe high impact reserves if you really want your sidearm to shred, but you're not going to get a whole lot of high impact reserve shots in this 15 round magazine. You get maybe like 7 or 8, so wouldn't really recommend high impact reserves. Multi-kill clip, fantastic perk. Surrounded, if you can get it to activate, is fine. For PvP, nothing else in this column stands out. Vorpal is not really going to help you shut down supers because this is a sidearm, and yeah, half the time that super will probably kill you dead before you have a chance to shut it down with the Vorpal weapon sidearm. PvE, Vorpal is probably fine if sidearms become a champion weapon again. I can't even remember when was the last time they were a champion weapon though, so don't hold your breath. I would honestly recommend probably Wellspring, Surrounded, or Multi-Kill Clip for PvE instead. And then in that first perk column, definitely rapid hit. Threat detector, maybe as a poor man's rapid hit, but rapid hit is fantastic. Just a straight up boost to reload speed without having to, get any precision kills or anything like that. Magazine wise, appended mag is probably fine. If you like reloading a lot, flared mag or light mag are probably your best choices. And I don't think the masterwork really matters too much on this thing unless you're a hyper min maxer. I'd probably rock a reload speed though, just because I want to be reloading this thing a lot. It's a sidearm. It is a small magazine that is going to chew through fairly fast. And yeah. Second crucible weapon is the Frozen Orbit Sniper. This thing in PvP, pretty good if you can work with the high zoom. Having 50 zoom on this sniper rifle really does make a difference, makes it feel kind of awkward to use unless you were at insanely long ranges. So this will not work for everybody. What I found working for me was something along the lines of snapshot and moving target. Pretty good perks. You could even go snapshot firmly planted if you're willing to sacrifice some movement while you're sniping. Firmly planted is honestly kind of a slept on perk for PvP. It can make this thing into a headshot magnet, depending on how good you are with snipers, how much you're going to crouch while sniping. You could go box breathing or Vorpal weapon if you want this thing to shut down supers. But because it's a 72 RPM, aggressive sniper, it can one-shot headshot any roaming super in the game currently. So it's not really necessary. Although if you wanted your sniper to be able to shut down like a Glacial Quake Titan, then you are going to need one of those perks, because for whatever reason, Glacial Quake Titans can currently tank, an aggressive frame sniper headshot. It's kind of silly, but it just is what it is, at least for right now. But yeah, that 50 zoom will really get you in PvP. You're just gonna have to work with it. PvE wise, I would say maybe triple tap Vorpal. Combine that with a boss spec, or honestly a backup mag will do you fine. You could go clown cartridge Vorpal as well. And then if you combine that with something like extended mag, and then a backup mag, so you're getting 5 in a magazine at base. And then with clown cartridge, I can't even tell you how many rounds in the magazine you get. Granted, you're tanking that reload speed pretty hard, but a lot of sniper shots can make a difference. If you don't want to go the extended mag route though, tactical mag is always a fine choice. You'll get 4 in the magazine. Combine that with like clown cartridge, Vorpal for boss damage. In this case, I would probably recommend boss spec takes it back down to 3. Yeah, in that case, go like appended mag. If you want to use a boss spec, use appended mag. If you're fine with using a backup mag, I can't even find where the mod is anymore. If you're fine with using a backup mag, go tactical. I would say, I'd say boss spec and an appended mag for PvE, and then reload speed masterwork to kind of help you, get your shots faster. And yeah, I'd say that's the primary reason I would want this sniper. You could go surplus for the reload speed, or you could go auto-loading holster if you plan on switching weapons a lot. But yeah, triple tap Vorpal, clown cartridge Vorpal, and appended mag are your best PvE bets if you just want a pure damage sniper, which is probably what I would want. So moving on from there, we have gambit weapons, first of which is a fusion rifle called Trinary System. So this is an adaptive frame fusion rifle. So looking at the perks here, I guess we'll start with PvP. Backup plan is fine. Because it's on an adaptive frame, it's not going to kill your damage like it will on other archetypes, specifically, high impact fusions. You could always go under pressure, high impact reserves. For PvP, you go surplus. Really, what you're looking for PvP is just stuff to increase like your stability and some damage for just like consistency. Hence the high impact reserves. You don't need to get a kill to proc that. You could also go firmly planted for that stability, but you do have to crouch, so you're kind of killing your mobility. You could even go firmly planted, tap the trigger, or under pressure, tap the trigger for just really consistent stability. Surplus, tap the trigger. Maybe projection fuse to kind of increase your range, and then I'd say small bore, or either corkscrew or small bore, just for straight increases there to your range and stability to just keep this thing consistent for you in PvP. You could go liquid coils as well, but that will hurt your range pretty substantially, and since this is a adaptive fusion, you're going to want that range. So range masterwork, you could go stability masterwork, but I would prefer range masterwork for PvP, and then probably a counterbalance stock to help with that recoil direction. Seems to be knocking it over a little bit though. Very interesting. If that's the case, then I'm not really sure. Maybe a freehand grip if you want to hip fire it. I'm not a huge fan of hip firing it though. You definitely don't want an Icarus grip on this thing for PvP because jumping with fusion rifles is kind of asking for it most of the time, but if you're a madman, go for it. You could go targeting adjuster, but I don't really know how well that works on fusion rifle bolts in PvP. That's about all I can say. I really wouldn't recommend this for PvP, honestly, unless you're just, a fusion rifle fanatic. For PvE, honestly, a lot of really solid choices. You could roll with surplus. You could roll with auto-loading. I'd say probably feeding frenzy as just kind of a consistent thing for PvE. Demolitionist for grenade bills. Kill clip to kind of help with ad clearing. Multi-kill clip as well. Wellspring for just general ability builds. Maybe Thresh, but I'm going to be honest, just not a solid perk. Just so I don't reiterate this too many times, I'm just going to say it one more time, and then not again for the rest of this video. Thresh is only really going to give you benefit if you're using the exotic Warlock chest piece, the new one, that gives you super energy when you match your energy weapon kills to the element of the subclass you're using. If you're not using the Mantle of Battle Harmony, don't bother with Thresh. And with that being said, I think I'm done talking about this fusion rifle. Fusion rifle's just not really in a great spot, so it's hard for me to recommend this for that reason. But the other Gambit weapon, however, completely makes up for it, because this weapon is solid. This is the bottom dollar hand cannon, and this thing is good for anything. It is good for PvP, it is good for PvE, it is good for Gambit, which is both. It's just good. Solid weapon, great feeling weapon when I've used it. Probably my overall role recommendation is Outlaw Rampage or Rabbit Hit Rampage. Just fantastic combination. You really can't go wrong with that. You can use that in just about any activity and get away with it. It's solid. I would prefer tactical mag and probably corkscrew rifling, because while small bore is a good trait, because this is kind of a slower firing, heavier feeling hand cannon, having a little bit more handling can make it feel a little bit more snappier, comfier. Recoil direction on this thing is fantastic, so you don't need to worry about that. I guess some other notable mentions as far as perks on here are explosive payload, rangefinder for like a hard PvP setup. Since rangefinder will boost the range, which on a 120 aggressive frame hand cannon, you know, this perk will just make it disgusting. And then explosive payload, those explosive rounds don't have damage fall off, so that's, you know, even more disgusting. Combine that with a range masterwork to, you know, make it even more range. You see where I'm going with this? This is just potentially disgusting. If you're a fan of opening shot, you could use this, but on a 120, I don't know. I don't usually feel the need for opening shot. I would just stick with outlaw, rampage, rapid hit rampage. You could go with high impact reserves. I don't know how that really performs. You could go with multi-kill clip as well, depending on your preference. But those are my thoughts really for this. Fantastic feeling hand cannon. Definitely recommend. And that's about all I really need to say. Just a great hand cannon. Moving on from there, we have a few weapons that are kind of odd ones out. I think they're in like the world loot pool, so you can get them from maybe vendors or from like unfocused or like worldly focused umbral engrams. But we'll start with the retro futurist shotgun. So at a first glance, I would say probably trench barrel and oh boy. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe dual loader, but you're gonna be reloading for 10 years with dual loader. Yeah, I don't know about this one, guys. This is... I would say this is maybe an okay, like, PvE shotgun, but Feeding Frenzy requires you to kill things, which requires you to spend ammo, which you want to keep to, you know, make use of Trench Barrel to take down like that Major or, you know, the champion or something. I guess Quick Draw, maybe? You can't really go wrong with Quick Draw. Underdog, no. Just no. If you're in a situation where Underdog is procced, you may as well be using Pulse Monitor, because that's just going to reload your magazine anyway. And then Hipfire, really no reason to use this in PvE, if I'm completely honest. I don't know what to say about this weapon. The rolls on this are not fantastic. I could see maybe making use of Swashbuckler in either PvE or PvP. But for PvE damage in general, Trench Barrel, and then anything but Dual Loader. Avoid this perk with your life. Try to avoid Underdog. And then for PvE, or PvP, excuse me, I guess Quick Draw. Can't really go wrong with Quick Draw and shotguns. Fantastic perk. And then Snapshot, really not necessary, but if it's your preference, go for it. I guess for PvP, maybe Quick Draw and Swashbuckler. You know, you could make use of that, but it's not a fantastic combination. As far as magazines, this honestly matters more for PvP, but if you are making use of Trench Barrel for PvE, you could always go Assault Mag to get your rounds out faster. If not Assault Mag, then either Tactical or Appended for just those boosts to magazine. Alright, well in that case, Appended. Yeah, Appended for PvE. For PvE or PvP, I'd say Accurized for the range, and then maybe Full Choke. If you want this thing to be consistent in PvP, definitely Full Choke. But otherwise, Rifled Barrel for that increased range. Handling will not matter because Quick Draw will help you draw it out faster, thereby reducing the need for good handling. But avoid smoothbore with your life. Don't use smoothbore in PvP. Bad perk. And that's about all I can say. I cannot recommend this retro futurist shotgun whatsoever. I would not use it. I would much rather use anything else. However, the next weapon, I don't know if I could recommend this, less than the shotgun. Because it's a rapid fire frame fusion rifle, and those things are not meta. It is not meta. It does not do a whole lot of damage at all. The slightly faster reload when magazine is empty is a helpful intrinsic perk, though, I will say that. For PvP, I don't even know what to say. Maybe high impact, hip fire if you like hip firing, under pressure otherwise for consistency. Projection for the range. And as far as zooms go, or sights, excuse me, sights and scopes, you should probably just try these out yourself, because they really do feel a certain way. Like, the thing about sights is you can look at the stats and maybe make some decisions based on stats alone. But for me, I find just testing the sights and the scopes and seeing what ones I like better helps me make a final decision. Without testing any of these for myself, I can't really tell you which one to use. You're just going to have to try and see what feels best for you. Might not make a whole lot of difference. But yeah, PvP, I couldn't really recommend this because you're going to find that you need to land a lot of bolts to secure one-hit kill. I don't even know if it's possible to one-hit kill with these. I don't use them. Yeah, PvE, probably not the best. You could maybe use Vorpal Weapon for some majors and stuff. You could even make use of high impact reserves in PvE, along with Feeding Frenzy or Lead from Gold if you're getting a lot of heavy ammo. What I would say though, or at least what I would roll with, is Grave Robber Swashbuckler, because the perks just pair really, really fantastically. You get a melee kill, and then not only have you reloaded your 7 magazine, you've got a Swashbuckler damage bonus, which will help you, actually damage things with this fusion rifle, since it's a rapid fire frame and it kind of tends to struggle with that. And if you're using it in PvE, I'd probably say Liquid Coils. And yeah, I mean, that's about all I can really say. Just wouldn't really be my recommendation unless you, again, are into fusion rifles and you find a way to make this work. Yeah. Next weapon is the Eternal Blazing Scout Rifle. I'm not sure what I just did there. Eternal Blazing Scout Rifle. Now, don't be misled by the Vanguard insignia. This does not drop as a random playlist completion strike weapon. You might get it during a strike, maybe, I don't know. It seems to be a random drop weapon. It is very hard to get this thing to drop though. Insanely hard. But I think it makes up for it in its potential rapid hit and kill clip roll. I think that is a very good perk combination. I personally am really desperately hoping I can get one to drop because, scouts are barrier weapons, for champions this season. So having, a good well-rolled scout rifle for that Grandmaster Nightfall is going to be critically important. Especially because this one is in the energy slot. I feel like a lot of the best scout rifles we have are in the kinetic slot. And so having a good energy scout rifle will kind of increase your options. You could roll with overflow as well. Maybe overflow 1 for all, overflow disruption break. But the thing about overflow is it's hard to... You can't pair overflow and kill clip. That's my main concern, is you cannot pair overflow with kill clip, so you're not getting that damage buff. Whereas with rapid hit and kill clip, you're getting, that bump to reload speed and that damage perk after killing an enemy, which then helps you kill the next enemy and the next one. Just a solid combination. For PvP, I mean, maybe killing one rangefinder. To max out that range. Could go rapid hit rangefinder to make it, super stable and consistent. But scouts, at least for me, tend to feel super stable already in PvP, so rapid hit might not be completely necessary, but it certainly doesn't hurt. Ricochet rounds as always. And then sights again. It's worth testing sights for yourself, seeing what you like. I personally prefer a clean red dot rather than some of the kind of circular-ish shaped reticles that this thing has. I don't like those little circle reticles at all. Not really my preference. I prefer a clean red dot, so that's what I would recommend. But yeah, getting this thing to roll pretty hard. So good luck. Moving on from there though, we've got some trials weapons, some of which are new to this season, some of which are kind of reissues from previous seasons. We'll start with the new ones, starting with this weekend's, all-star reward, the Messenger Pulse Rifle. This thing is very, very good. 340 high impact pulse rifle, meaning it can 2 burst in 0.67 seconds in PvP. Super competitive time to kill if you can be optimal. And the standout perk on this one is obviously Desperado. This thing is disgusting. If you liked Redrix's broadsword, you're gonna love this pulse rifle, because this is essentially just a better Desperado. Like, it's Desperado, but at least for me, it seems to last even longer than Redrix's broadsword Desperado. For PvP, probably rapid hit Desperado is your best bet. Ricochet rounds as always, chambered compensator, or maybe even arrowhead to help with the recoil on this. I would definitely slap a counterbalance mod on there for sure to keep it super consistent. But yeah, I hope you're ready to be shredded by this in PvP, because this is meta beyond meta. This is absolutely disgusting when you get Desperado rolling. It shreds. Get your hands on this as soon as you possibly can. Do whatever it takes. I'm telling you, you need this if you want to play PvP. For PvE though, well, as it turns out, rapid hit Desperado is a perfectly acceptable thing for PvE as well. But when you proc Desperado in PvE, get that increased rate of fire, your damage goes down, unlike PvP. So, depending on whether or not you are okay with that, I might instead recommend Kill Clip. Kill Clip with rapid hit, or Outlaw Kill Clip for PvE. Simply because you're not losing damage, but I think whether you use Kill Clip or Desperado in PvE is really up to you. You could use one for all as well. Might be helpful in something like a Nightfall. But pulse rifles and Nightfalls, they tend to shred pretty hard, at least comparatively anyway. So one for all might not be completely necessary. But if you like that perk, definitely take advantage of it here on Messenger. Super good weapon. Nice thing too is you don't have a whole lot of perks that can roll on this here, unlike some of our just general playlist weapons. So getting a god roll on this compared to something like the Vanguard Pulse Rifle is going to be much easier. This is also a kinetic slot weapon, so that's super nice considering most of the weapons we're looking at are energy and heavy weapons this season. Yeah. Next Trials weapon is the, I can't type, Igneous Hammer. So, this is essentially the rich man's bottom dollar. It can get Outlaw Rampage as well. You can get Rapid Hit Rampage, One for All, I guess, for PvE. But honestly, I would just say Outlaw Rampage or Rapid Hit Rampage, because as soon as you proc Rampage in PvP, You can start 2-tapping people, which is fantastic. Ricochet rounds for PvE, or excuse me, for PvP is fantastic. For PvE, I'd say probably appended mag. Then corkscrew is fantastic, as with bottom dollar. And I'd say range or reload masterwork, depending on whether you're in PvE or PvP. You may want stability on this thing as well, but I prefer the straight up bump to range and reload speed. This will probably be a pretty good weapon when it comes out. Definitely keep an eye on it as the 3-win reward, since it's a bit easier to get a good roll on this than the bottom dollar, but you will probably be receiving this in a lesser quantity than the bottom dollar, since you can't farm Trials weapons as hard most of the time. Keep that in mind. And with that, we come to the last of the new Trials weapons, the Sola's Scar Sword. This is essentially a solar version of the Temptation's Hook Sword that we saw in Season of Arrivals, which kind of works like Black Talon in that it launches a projectile as its fully charged heavy attack. I personally have never been a huge fan of the caster frame swords. I do think they're kind of cool, but I prefer different swords for pure damage. But, as always, you've got Relentless Strikes Vorpal if you just want a consistent damage sword. You can make use of counterattack depending on, the scenario you're in, but you do have to wait to, get that damage bonus. Whereas with Vorpal, if you're damaging a boss, you just get that straight up bonus. And also with Vorpal, you don't have to be blocking an attack. With counterattack, because you have to block an attack, you have to get up to something, and as a result, you're not able to safely stand from a distance and use that heavy projectile attack. Whereas with Vorpal, you can use that heavy projectile attack from any distance and get the damage bonus, which is fantastic. As far as guards go, a lot of people like Sword Masters to boost that charge rate, get your heavy attack more often. For PvE, I prefer Jagged Edge. The edge that you have does not matter in PvP whatsoever, so I would honestly just keep on with Jagged Edge regardless. There's only one masterwork on swords, and that is Impact. Definitely masterwork your sword. If you have one, get one, because it's just a straight up boost to damage. There's no reason not to masterwork your sword. As far as mods go, don't really need a backup mag because you're not reloading the sword. I would just go with something to increase your damage. As far as PvP mods, I got no clue. Maybe a radar booster. If you're one of those people who likes to 3-peek, that's terrible. But, if you're using that, definitely radar booster for PvP. And then for PvP as well, I guess you could maybe utilize Assassin's Blade and Tireless. Maybe. To be honest, I don't think this first column perk is going to help you a whole lot in PvP, regardless of what it is. I would just say Assassins. It's probably your best bet. I guess one final note for PvE is Chain Reaction with Dragonfly spec, again, as we've mentioned before. Definitely worth trying when it comes out. This might make it a pretty good ad clear sword, which would be interesting since you can just stand from a distance, use the heavy attack, and then just shred like a group of ads with Chain Reaction. But we'll have to wait and see. Should be interesting, should be fun. And next we'll talk about the reissues of Trials weapons. And we'll start with Astral Horizon. This thing kind of got butchered with reissued perks, not gonna lie. This perk cannot currently roll. Okay. So these are all the perks that cannot currently roll. Unfortunately, a lot of the good perks are the ones you cannot get, such as Quick Draw. You cannot get Quick Draw anymore, meaning that in PvP, you are going to have a hard time with this weapon now if you get one. About the best thing you can get is Surplus for that handling, but quick draw is essentially irreplaceable on these aggressive frame shotguns for PvP. Don't even bother with celerity. It is a clutch perk, so it's not going to help you most of the time. Opening shot, I guess, is still good, but without quick draw to pair with it, that kind of hurts it some. Still a good perk, just not. You can't swap as much. Like, you really have to be picky about when you draw your shotgun, since you don't have quick draw, unless you are, again, rolling with surplus. Full choke if you want consistency, otherwise rifled barrel for the range. Don't really need assault mag for PvP. I'd say just accurized. But yeah, PvE wise, not great. Lead from gold or auto loading are probably your best bets. And then trench barrel. Demolitionist maybe if you're rocking a grenade build, but I'd say trench barrel. And then probably tactical mag or assault mag for that damage. Then barrel won't really matter too much in PvE. Yeah, this thing got butchered. Not having 1-2 punch for PvE is very, very sad. Not having quick draw for PvP is even worse. I honestly can't really recommend Astral anymore. This thing just took a turn for the worse with this reissue. And yeah. Moving on though, we have the Exile's Curse. I believe this is one of the reissued weapons. If I'm wrong, feel free to correct me. But regardless though, yeah, see, this perk cannot currently roll. This is a reissue. For PvP, high impact is probably your best bet. Kickstart. This is an interesting new perk. Gain bonus damage and charge rate during a slide after sprinting for a short duration. So, if you're able to take advantage of this, you can slide into a gunfight and then laser somebody with your fusion rifle, which on a high impact frame could be pretty effective. It could secure you some one-shot kills a bit more consistently. You pair this with slide shot. Now you might start, you might find that this is super effective. Without having my hands on it currently though, I can't really give you like a solid confirmation. If you do get kickstart though, definitely hope you get slide shot as well. I think that is an interesting pairing. Otherwise though, for just pure consistency, slide shot high impact or quick draw high impact for PvE, or excuse me, for PvP. PvP wise, or I keep mixing these up. PvE wise, for weapon. And maybe slide shot, maybe quick draw, maybe pulse monitor. Hard to say. That's all I really have on this fusion rifle. Kickstart and slide shot should be an interesting combination. I'm curious to see what people will do with that. Moving on though, we have the last of the reissued trials weapons, the Tomorrow's Answer. This is probably the only weapon I don't feel like got completely butchered with the re-release, at least not counting the interesting combination on the fusion rifle we were just looking at. Because this rocket launcher can get both chain reaction and lasting impression in the second slot, both of which are fantastic perks. Very, very good. This is for ad clear, this is for boss damage. I'll just make that completely clear. Quick draw is probably good for PvP. Tracking module as well, good for PvP. Might help you in PvE some as well, but I don't tend to use it a whole lot on rockets. This is probably your best bet though. I'd say this, and a lasting impression, and impulse amplifier. This is what I would want. This is exactly what I would want on this rocket launcher from just a pure boss damage standpoint in PvE. Getting a good roll on this, again, definitely probably easier, at least RNG wise, than the Strike rocket launcher, for example. But again, this comes from trials, so you're not getting this in as high quantities as certain other rocket launchers. So there is that. And that's about all I really have to say. Only a few more weapons left. Not even going to bother talking about the dungeon weapons. We'll save that for maybe another time. But we'll talk about the 2 Iron Banner weapons next, and then finally the strike, or not the strike, the Nightfall weapons. But as far as Iron Banner weapons go, we'll start with this SMG. I do like lightweight frame 900 RPM SMGs. They feel pretty good to use most of the time. They feel pretty consistent. And so I guess we'll start with PvE. We have Threat Detector Kill Clip as my first choice. You've got Tactical Mag there for that boosted magazine size. Probably just a fantastic add killing combo. Again, I cannot really recommend Subsistence. You're going to run out of ammo and regret even having it on your SMG to begin with. PvP, do not even bother with this. Do not even bother with this. Iron Reach, however. Just kidding, don't even bother with this either, because not having that stability, look at that. That's awful. You don't want that. Your bullets will fly everywhere if you have this. Don't even bother. And the thing about this is you'll get a boost to stability, but the reload speed tanking just would not be my first choice. And the thing about stability too, at least on these 900 RPM SMGs, is while it's good, it still might not necessarily help you land all crits. Like, a lot of times in PvP, you're landing a lot of body shots. So while this might make it more consistent, it's just going to take your reload speed in between gunfights or mid gunfight, which is just awful. Like, you're going to lose. I just roll with Kill Clip. You could get Killing Wind Kill Clip, maybe Accurized if you want the range. Hipfire wouldn't really be my first choice. I feel like SMGs might not have the best hipfire accuracy, but it's good enough that you don't really need to hipfire this unless you're just like going all in on the hipfire build or whatever. Quick Draw, maybe not a bad perk, but I don't feel like it's completely necessary because this already has fantastic handling stat. You might find dynamic sway reduction useful for the stability, but might not be completely necessary. I will say, because this doesn't tank your reload speed the way Iron Grip does, you'll definitely find this being more useful if you want your SMG to be stable. But yeah, I'd say Killing Wind Kill Clip, Dynamic Sway Reduction Kill Clip, best for PvP, and then Threat Detector for PvE. Quick Draw just kind of being there. And yeah, I'd say Reload Speed Masterwork as well. Just kind of help with that reload. Next up for Iron Banner weapons, we have the Time Worn Spire. This is a kinetic rapid fire pulse rifle, which we don't really get too many of. So that's a good thing. What's not good though is the range. Range on rapid fire pulse rifles, and on this one in particular, not super great. To compensate, I'd say ricochet rounds for PvP. For PvP as well, maybe under pressure if you find stability is an issue. I personally don't. So maybe moving target if you're on controller, or maybe even mouse and keyboard, you might find some benefit from this. That's about the best I could really say for PvP in this first column. Rampage is great. You might find some use from Iron Reach depending on, how much you feel like you need the stability. If you go with Iron Reach, in that case, I would probably recommend Under Pressure to kind of help with that. But this still really wouldn't be my first choice. It just throws off like the stat balance on your weapon. Iron Gaze, I feel like, is pretty pointless. And yeah, that tanks your range stat for what really appears to be no reason. It seems like this already has a decent aim assist stat. I'd say Feeding Frenzy Rampage for PvE, maybe Appended Mag. I'd probably go Light Mag, just because it's a flat boost to range and reload, which is fine. Yeah, I don't really know what to say without trying this weapon out for myself. I was a personal fan of the Claws of the Wolf rapid fire pulse rifle from Iron Banner that we had available previously. I loved that thing. Until I know how this compares to that, I won't really be able to give like a good final verdict. That being said, though, we'll try to wrap things up here with the 3 Nightfall weapons that you can get this season as just random drops from the Ordeal. You know, higher the difficulty, the higher chance you have on getting them. First, we'll look at shadow price, of which I have been using quite a lot. I'm going to be honest, precision frame auto rifles are not crazy good. They just don't really do a lot of damage in either PvP or PvE. So, yeah. With that in mind, though, I guess we'll start with PvP. I would say probably range masterwork. Mod-wise, maybe a targeting adjuster. The thing is, you don't really need a targeting adjuster, though, nor do you need an Icarus grip. Since it's a precision frame, it has kind of intrinsically better accuracy. So if using this in PvP, I'd say probably a backup mag is your best friend for that. And then perk-wise, don't really know what to say. Maybe Killing Wind for PvP. You could maybe roll something like Swashbuckler, Dragonfly if you can get it to work. But yeah, I can't really recommend this for PvP. PvE-wise, we have Overflow. It's fantastic. Unrelenting, now that it works again, is probably fine. I've been using Surplus and One for All, which is great for me because I love reloading, and One for All doesn't require kills to activate, so you do get a damage bump there. But honestly, I haven't really been noticing One for All as far as damage perks go. This thing just does not do a whole lot of damage, which really, really hurts its usability. Yeah. Guess next we'll look at the Swarm. So the thing about the Swarm is it's a high impact machine gun. It's an arc machine gun. What else do we have that's a high impact arc machine gun? We have the 7th Seraph Saw. What can the 7th Seraph Saw do? It can generate Warmind cells. This gun cannot. So unfortunately, this is just going to be kind of our cheapy replacement for the 7th Seraph Saw when that gets sunset. I guess we'll talk about PvE first. Vorpal is fantastic if you just want, a solid damage perk. Dragonfly and or One for All are good, ad clearing perks. Surplus if you like reloading. Outlaw also is fine, but on a machine gun, you may have, trouble getting Outlaw to consistently, you may have trouble consistently landing those headshot blows since this is more of a spray and pray weapon than other certain weapons. I'd say Tactical Mag would probably be my preference for PvE, and yeah, I don't know. Hard for me to really recommend this over the Saw, but again, since the Saw is going away, this will kind of be the next best thing for a while, at least until we get maybe another heavy weapon that can generate Warmind cells, but we'll have to see how that plays out. PvE or PvP wise, dynamic sway reduction is probably good, although you're not going to be getting a whole lot of ammo per brick. So by the time you get dynamic sway reduction to proc, you might be low on ammo. So for that reason, I'd say probably Surplus still, just for the increase in stability to make this thing consistent. You could roll with Killing Wind or Killing Wind. Hard to pick between those. Tap the Trigger is also good for that increase in stability for PvP. Maybe Zen Moment on a controller, but yeah. As far as barrels go for PvP, if you want to map people, use Accurized. If you want this to be consistent, use Steady Rounds. Maybe Chambered Compensator, and a counterbalance stock if you want this to be consistent. Although if you do throw a backup mag on there, you'll get more ammo per break pickup in PvP. Don't ask me how or why that works, it just does. And that's about all I really have to say. Maybe my opinion will change once I get my hands on the Swarm, once I see how it feels to play with. But it's honestly more than likely just going to be the cheap replacement for the 7th Seraph Saw when that gets sunset. And then finally we have the Palindrome. This thing. Rampage. Outlaw. Enough said. It's like bottom dollar. It just works everywhere. Also like bottom dollar, it has a very good recoil direction. So this thing will probably feel fantastic to fire. Now, what about not Outlaw Rampage rolls? Well, Unrelenting is a fine perk. Killing Wind or Killing Wind, those are both fine perks. Rangefinder maybe for PvP. You could go Killing Wind Rangefinder for the mapping people roll, ricochet rounds to kind of increase the range stability for PvP. For me, Light Mag for PvE, Hammer Forged for PvP for just the straight bump to range. I don't really think the stability is necessary, but if you find it necessary, definitely go with Small Bore or Corkscrew. Chambered Compensator and Arrowhead completely unnecessary, since this already has a very, very good, nice and vertical, clean recoil direction there. That's about all I can say on this. This will probably be just a standout, fantastic weapon, Outlaw Rampage. And with that, that kind of concludes my thoughts here. I can't really think of much else to say. A lot of desirable loot. Go get yourself some loot. Hope this helped. Thanks for watching.